Welcome to the Gentleman's Guide to Gaming. Recently got a request from Andrew Whitmore. I say recently, within the last several months I got a request from Andrew Whitmore, one of my viewers and subscribers, I believe he is subscribed, if not, why not, on how to give locations character. Locations are an interesting thing, and of course are a very important thing, and too many games have I played in which we enter a 30-foot by 30-foot room, it's grey, it's square, there's a chest in the corner and an orc guarding it, that kind of thing, you know, the old trope. Well, characters make up locations, locations can make characters, and so how to give a location character is obviously about how you dress it. It is no different than making a set for a movie or a TV show or a theatre production. There needs to be something about it, but you can do more than just make it look vibrant. You can make it smell, you can make it sound in a certain way. You want to appeal to all of the senses that are possible. And in fact, I would go so far as to say that you can taste something in the air, or you can, the air feels a certain way. Really appeal to every single sense. Hell, go for a sixth one if you want, and say that this place gives you a headache. So, how to make a location interesting, or how to give a location character. Well, let's think of one, and this is completely off the top of my head. We will go for the slaughterhouse. Why not? We will go for a slaughterhouse. We'll go for a World of Darkness style game, where the characters have actually tracked down the serial killer, the vampire, the werewolf, whatever, to its den, its lair. And in so doing, have entered a great warehouse that from the outside looks quite plain. Long, tall windows, all blacked out, stretching along the outside. This place is around the size of an aircraft hangar. Right in the middle of the industrial district of the city, which has long been dilapidated. In the last 2 miles of driving, you have not seen one other car. You've not seen one set of headlights, and most of the lamp lights are out as well. As you approach the warehouse in your car, you're actually struggling to pick up a signal on your radio. You're that far out, it's almost as if no one could be bothered to transmit to this area. It's almost as if people forgot this place existed. And as soon as you step out of your car, you're hit by the silence. You haven't heard anything so devoid of life since you were last in the countryside, and even then you had the sound of the bugs, the wind. No, here it is completely still. It is like you're in a vacuum. Just in the distance you can see the twinkling of the city lights. How far have you travelled, really? On the air, there's a smell. You're not that far away from the river and the built-up detritus that's just been thrown in there, that's been left to clog up in this particular area, is reaching your nose. Maybe there's not a smell of life around here, but there's certainly a smell of rancidity, of death. You and your friends look at one another. It is enough to contribute to your already, shall we say, nervous sensibility, given that you know the danger of what you're pursuing. The first thing you approach is the windows. You can't get up to them without actually climbing. They are a fair way up the wall, and so one of your companions boosts you up to take a look through. As you try to claw your way onto the sill, you get that awful feeling of when you drag your fingernails against something that resists slightly, like a plastic or a corrugated iron or a blackboard, to use the old adage. It is like you react, you want to leap back. This place is old, it feels dirty, it gets under your nails and under your skin, but you take a grip. You look in through the darkened windows, and unfortunately, despite that great sacrifice you made to your nails, you can't see much. Shadows move. There is a dim light in there. It's almost as if there's people moving around. But they don't look like people. There's no arms or legs. There's like bodies moving. It's like shapes moving backwards and forwards. It takes a little while before you start to become aware of the fact that the shapes are moving in a continuous rhythm, swaying, just swaying. You put your hands over your eyes, you try and block out what little light there is behind you in order to get a better glimpse of what's inside, and as you do so, a face comes up to the window. You can't help but shriek out. This face, so ugly, so hideous, so warped, not the person you were even looking for as far as you were aware, but makes you jump, makes you fall backwards, fall off of the companion that's boosted you. You land smack onto the tar. You hit your head. Your companions ask you. You say there's someone in there. There's someone who's looking out of that window. Your cover is blown. You're going straight in. You go for the doors, and as you pry them open, there is a creaking grate, a scrape of metal. Like this place hasn't been opened up for a very long time, or wasn't supposed to have been opened up at all. As soon as the door opens, the odour hits you. There's no slow wave of heat, no gradual dispersal of odour. It is like a wall comes out from the doorway and smacks you all in the face. It's the kind of odour that makes your eyes water, and you want to not breathe through your nose, you want to breathe through your mouth, but you don't want to taste this, but it smells like and tastes like meat, off meat, the way that meat gets when you've left it in the fridge for a bit too long. It starts to get wet, it starts to get slimy, it starts to congeal and taste just rancid in your mouth, just off. You can't get beyond it. It's the pungency of this odour. Something in here has died. Maybe not that long ago. You and your companions usher in. You have your weapons to hand. The sight before you. This is no 30 by 30 room. This is one long, chilled building. Part of the reason you couldn't see within is because of the coolness in certain areas where the freezers are banked against the windows, below the windows. There's obviously a little bit of condensation, making seeing through the windows even harder than usual. And yet it doesn't override the heat in this place. This amount of electrics going on, while the freezers and the air immediately surrounding them may well be cool, the rest of this place, from all the machinery, is warm, and the tables that are laid out increasingly as you get further and further away from the door and closer towards the back of this hangar, are laid out with what can only be described as sacrifices. The things moving on chains, clinking and clanking as they're moving through this great long hangar, have stumps of bodies, legless, armless, just hanging on them as they're moving around as if on a sushi carousel, occasionally being pried off by the figures at ground level who are hacking them up. The gantry just over the lip of the freezers contains a number of ugly, inhuman looking men, one of them already pointing at the door, the one you saw through the window. You take a step, you hear something wet. You can't help but look down. As you lift your foot, there's actual resistance. Whatever you've stepped in is so congealed, so coagulated, that it's actually pulling like bubble gum attached to the floor, except it's dark, it's brown, it's red, it's something you don't even want to know what part of a human body this came from. You don't even know what bodily fluid this is, and you don't really want to. And as you part the seal with your foot, as if the smell couldn't get any worse, it reaches you right at the back of your nose, that worst smell of feculence, of shit, of gore. You can taste it all now. You can see it all. All of the workers put down their blades. Perhaps that's a mercy, because they're not going to try and hack you up. Instead, they just slowly start walking towards you. Clearly, they want you alive. One of the men on the gantry is stood next to something you hadn't noticed before, quite out of place in this great big abattoir, this huge hangar. Small gramophone, clearly used occasionally to instill a bit of calm and music in the workers. He takes the needle, puts it to the edge of the record, and starts the music playing. A classical piece, soft, melodic, soothing, creates a harsh mix with the pulling and grunting and thrusting of these men and women and unidentifiable things dragging you further into the room. Those that you shoot or cut down are replaced by two others, these blank-faced, blank-minded automatons pull you towards the tables. They like prey that moves, that wriggles. They need fresh meat. As you're slammed down onto the wood, and you feel it, you feel the sharp pain as that open wound on the back of your head hits the wooden table. You see stars. You look up. The one who's looking over you has picked up her blade again, and she looks sad. A tear drops from an encrusted, bloodshot eye and hits you just on the lip. You don't want to taste it, but you can't help it. You're restrained, salty. This thing is crying for you as it raises its blade over its head. You don't feel the pain as the blade comes down, not immediately. You hear the sound of it. You hear the sound of the hacking of the meat. You hear the sound of your screaming companions. You see the blade going up again. So dark in here. How can they tell what they're doing? There's no lights beyond little box torches laid around this room. You can just see out of the corner of your eye, creating the flickering shadows. The smell is mostly gone now. It's just the sound of cutting through resisting meat and bone, the sound of screaming and crying and begging, the sound of the music in the background. You try to penetrate the gloom and see the ceiling. How high up does it go? You try to see the windows. Is there anybody out there? Greeted with nothing but blackness. And that, for me, is how you would give character to a location. Apologies for it being a bit rambling. I don't usually, in a role-playing game, give a 15-minute description of exactly what you're seeing, what happens to your characters, oh, and by the way, you died. And apologies for that getting very grim as well. I think I may have to put a warning at the beginning of this video, because it got a bit violent. Yes, and at which point I'd say, and what do you do now? I turn it over to the players. They were just sat there looking at me as if I've lost my mind. So, what did we do here? We described things that were seen. We described the things you could hear, we described the things you could smell, we described the things you could taste, we described the things that you could feel. You want to appeal to all five senses, and you know, I could have gone for the old going through an exotic bazaar where you're picking up the spices on your tongue and smelling them and hearing the exotic garbles of foreign languages as people try to sell you rugs and herbs, and the grasp of tight fingers around your wrist as bracelets are thrust upon you and they shout out, "You buy, you buy." You know, could have done that, but no, we went for the Abattoir. And, well, you know, you get what you pay for. This is the Gentleman's Guide to Gaming. This isn't some Al-Qadim channel. This isn't this isn't about Oriental adventures. My videos are largely World of Darkness, and I suppose you'd better get used to that. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that's been helpful. My single advice here, beyond all of that, is attempt to appeal to every sense. It gets people in the zone, it gets people in the mood, it really makes them feel trapped, which given a certain game, you may be in a place that you'd love to be trapped in. You may end up in a place you'd hate to be trapped in. But that really depends on the game you're playing, the group you're playing with. And you can do that with any location, you know, just take what's around you. I think, for me, the senses, and I'm just going on a bit longer than I thought, the senses that I appeal to most are probably smell and taste. Because people's memories are strongest when linked to the olfactory senses, supposedly. If you want to study, you should study in a place with you should put a Glade plug in or bake some bread at the same time or something like that. Because if you can then bake bread while you're doing the exam, you'll be able to connect everything with the things you were studying, which of course isn't easier said than done. But the point is, people will remember smells from when they were children. I, for instance, to my eternal sadness, I suppose, one of my grandparents, well, I don't have any grandparents now, but one of my grandparents died at a point when I was in my early teens, and I can't remember what their face was like. I don't think I can remember their voice. But I think I can remember the smell of the house, the smell of the washing powder. I can, you know, taste the overly strong squash that they would make, the sort of juice drink that they would make for me. The fact that they'd dump in an incredible amount of sugar in that kind of drink. That is what gives character to a location. So, for me, anyway, concentrate on the things that you remember best, and I don't think you can really go wrong with that. So thank you very much for watching.